Hi, fourth graders. Today is lesson 3-8, modeling fractions with fraction circles. You will need your whiteboard marker, and an eraser. You will go ahead and you will number 1. Go ahead, number 1. Number 2 and number 3. This is what we call expanded form. I want you to write what it would be in standard form. So, for example, 9 in the 10,000s place, or what we would say 9 times 10,000 would be 90,000. 5 in the thousands place, or 5 times 1,000. And 6 in the tens place. This, in standard form, would be 95,060. Would you please do number 2 and 3? Go ahead and pause the video while you write these in standard form. Number 2 would be 50,008. Nothing in the thousands, hundreds, or tens. Number 3 is 1 in the 10,000s, 5 in the thousands, nothing in the hundreds, 2 in the tens, and 7 for 15,027. Go ahead and erase your whiteboard. And I want you to think back to our fractions, because we're going to now compare fractions and decimals as ways to name the same number. So in this case, this decimal is read 3/10. I would think of a circle, and that circle having 10 equal parts. And 3 of those 10 being circled in, compared to 8 out of 10. Eight tenths. So it's just another way to write it. This would be 3 out of 10, or as a decimal, we would call this 3/10, or 8 out of 10, or we would call this 8/10. So 3/10 is less than 8/10. So which is greater? 8/10. This one right here. So now we're going to be adding decimals to our conversation about numbers. On your whiteboard, I'm going to read the number for you, and I want you to tell me in number 1, which is greater. This is read 1 and 2/10. This is read 9/10. Let me go ahead and draw a picture for you. So 1 and 2/10 would be 1 whole one, and 2 out of 10, 1 and 2/10. The decimal point is always read with the word and, or 1, 2, 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9/10. Which is greater? And number 2, which is less? 0, where nothing is shaded, or 1/10. Which is less? Go ahead and write down number 1, which is greater, write the decimal, and number 2, which is less. So number 1, 1 whole plus a little bit more, 2/10. 1 and 2/10 is greater. Which one is less? 0, or nothing shaded. Today we're going to go into our math journal and start working on tenths when something is divided into 10 equal parts. We're going to begin on page 89. Page 89, tenths. Write a fraction and a decimal below each circle. So we've been working on fractions. We know how to count how many equal parts there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The denominator tells me there are 10 equal parts. 8 of those 10 are shaded. How would I write that as a decimal? 8 tenths. The first number after the decimal place point is called the tenths place. That's the first number. Fraction for number 2. Remember to fill this out on journal page 89. Let's count. Again, we know there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everything is going to be tenths. We know that 5 tenths, or 5 out of 10 sections are shaded. As a decimal, we write it like this. And we say 5 tenths. You want to say the THS at the end. Now, number 3 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 3 out of 5 of those sections are shaded. Now, they're going to try to trick you a little bit. But I know you are not easily fooled. Here's my decimal point. The place after it, immediate following it, is called the tenths place. The only way that we can write a number is in there if there are 10 equal sections. So guess what I can do? I can change this to tenths so that I can write it as a decimal. I can't write a decimal when it's fifths. So I'm going to multiply by 2 on the bottom because 5 times 2 equals 10. I'm going to do the same thing to the numerator. In other words, if I were to divide each one of these sections into one more, guess what I would have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those would be shaded. Now, because it has tenths as a denominator, I can write my decimal as 6 tenths. I can only write it if it's in the tenths form. Let's continue down that page. Again, remember, I'm on page 89. This section says color part of each circle to show the decimal, then name the fraction that is colored. Well, it tells me to shade in 1/10. So would you go ahead and shade in 1 out of 10 equal parts? And as a fraction, it would look like 1/10. Number 5 says 9/10. So that means 9 sections would be shaded in. And that's read 9/10. Remember that first place after the decimal is called tenths. As a fraction, it would be 9 out of 10. Now I noticed something different already about number 6. It is not divided into tenths. So when I read the fraction 4 tenths, it's telling me 4 tenths. But look at that for a minute. That's in 1, 2, 3, 4 fifths. In order for me to shade it, I first of all need to know what it would be if it was in fifths. So remember, whatever we do to the top, we do to the bottom. So in this case, if I move this direction, I multiplied by 2. If I move from here to here and multiply by 2, I got 4. So I would have had to start out with 2 fifths. So when I go ahead and shade that in, I can't shade 4 out of 10 sections because this decimal reads 4 tenths. So I had to change that because my denominator should be fifths because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal parts. I'm going to go ahead and shade in 2 out of those 5. And that fraction is 2 fifths, or we can call it 4 tenths. So be careful. Again, the first place after the decimal is called tenths, and it has to be in 10 equal parts. Now we're going to take a look at the bottom of journal page 89. We're going to put a greater than, equal, or less than sign to make the number sentences true. Here's how I would go about doing it. Go ahead and compare the whole number. What's before the decimal? 0 and 0. They're the same. So let's go to the next number, 2 and 9. Which is larger? So we would say 2/10 is less than 9/10. Let's look at the next one. 0 and 0 are the same, so we go the first number after the decimal, 7 and 6. Which is larger? 7, the opening, goes to the larger number. Remember the little teeth? Wants to eat the bigger number. So 7/10 is greater than 6/10. The next one, again, start with the whole number. 1 and 1 are the same. So I'm going to go to the tenths place. Which is larger, 4 or 3? 4 is. So 1 and 4/10 is greater than 1 and 3/10. Number 10, we have the whole number 3 and 1. We don't need to go any further. Which one's larger? 3, and it would be read, 3 and 2/10 is greater than 1 and 8/10. Remember the decimal point? We say the word and. It equals the word and. Number 11, we have a 0 and a 0. So we'll go to the tenths place. We have 3 and 5. Which is larger? 3/10 or 5/10? 5/10 is larger. The next one, 0 and 0 are the same. So go to the tenths place, 1 and 1. They're both exactly the same. They are equal to one another. They are equivalent. Number 13, we have the whole number 2 and 2. They're the same, so let's go to the tenths place. 1 and 2, which is greater? 2. So we would say 2 and 1/10 is less than 2 and 2/10. And lastly, the whole number 10 and 11. We can stop there. Which one's larger? 10 and 1/10 is less than 11 and 1/10. We're going to go ahead and go back to Schoology and see what you need to do to complete this lesson.